It was a mildly dramatic night in Westminster. 7 rebel MPs were last night suspended from their party for voting for another party's amendment that would have immediately scrapped the 2-child benefit cap. So Keir Starmer wasn't putting up with that. LBC's political correspondent Aggie Chambre has the story. Aggie.
That's right, indeed. These ruthless scenes from Sir Keir after he's just taken over as Prime Minister. So these 7 backbench MPs, as they now are, include some key former Labour MPs, like the former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell and Rebecca Long-Bailey, who challenged Sir Keir for the leadership back in 2020. Now, it seems ruthless, yes, but those close to the leadership says these people were warned yesterday in no uncertain terms, and indeed the would-be rebels were definitely warning each other to be careful about this vote. As one left-wing Labour MP who voted with the government said to me, they went and shot themselves in the face. But despite these warnings, there were 7 who chose to rebel.
I think it's a dreadful measure that the Conservatives introduced, and we could lift. The latest estimate is anything up to nearly 400,000 children out of poverty just by this one measure. That's why I think it's important to vote for it today.
The key driver of rising child poverty is the 2-child benefit cap. And the single most effective way of tackling child poverty is immediately lifting 300,000 children out of poverty by scrapping this cruel policy. I will be voting for it.
That is why I support wholly the removal of the 2-child cap on benefits, which would immediately lift 300,000 children out of poverty.
That was John McDonnell, Zarah, Sultana and Ian Byrne, all now independent MPs. Now, look, the government has hinted this 2-child benefit cap will go at some point. They've set up a task force, but only they say when the money allow. But some close to the government feel this should have been a ladder for the rebels to climb down. And indeed, the rebellion was smaller than it could have been. These 7 are only suspended for 6 months. There is a route back, I'm told, but only if they spend the next 6 months behaving. And it sounds like voting with the government despite not having the Labour whip. But what of the politics of it? So Starmer has this huge majority. It doesn't matter to him that much to lose 7 MPs, especially as some of them are seen to be very close to former leader Jeremy Corbyn. As one person said to me, this closes the final page on the final chapter of the Corbyn Chronicles. But you have to be careful with this kind of ruthlessness. Yes, it'll be harder to rebel in future, and MPs will only be able to do it when they think they have safety in numbers, but it can also breed resentment among the ranks, and not everyone agrees with the strategy. We won't have to wait long to hear Keir Starmer defend it. It's the first PMQs later today. We'll be keeping a close eye on that.
Aggie Chambre reporting. Now let's come to the story that Aggie's just told us about and get your views. Sir Keir really flexing his muscle there, but as Aggie rightly points out, when you've got a majority of that size, you can pretty much do what you like. Trevor's in Wembley. Which way, had you been an MP, which way would you have gone on this, Trevor? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Nick.
Hello,
I would have done exactly what the 7 MPs did, because I believe it's the right thing to do. You know, they came, Labour won partly because because of what the Conservatives did for the past 14 years, right? Mm-hmm. They created this situation, right? And now they're in the position of dealing with it. All of a sudden, they're saying no. You have to wait until they say it.
But what is wrong to show fiscal discipline, financial discipline, and say, let's get in and let's find the money and then we'll do it? Why is that so offensive to you?
No, don't get me wrong, Nick.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yes, it's right. Yes, of course, you got to make sure that the money's there before you can, what
they're saying, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, but still, nevertheless, I like, for example, Nick, I'm one of the so-called long-term sick, because although I'm 57 years old, I've suffered from an anxiety disorder since my childhood, right? And I heard you talking this morning about that man.
The man.
I can't remember his name, but he's saying that he thinks that long-term sick should be forced.
Oh, Alan Milburn.
Yeah, Alan Milburn. And that makes me feel I deal with stress every single day. I can't control it, right? Whilst I'm even standing here talking to you, I feel stressed.
Well, I don't want that to happen. So lastly, Mr. Milburn, who I've interviewed on more occasions than I can remember, would not be looking for someone like you, sir, if you have genuine issues. He is looking at... Go ahead.
Genuine? I mean, what? Do I have to have half a leg, half an arm to be taken seriously?
I mean, I don't, and I'm not going to pry, but if you are in receipt of benefits and you're unable to work, I don't think there's a lot to ask that there's some medical background to that.
Oh, yeah, I've got medical. I've got people.
Then you've nothing to worry about.
My GP could back me up, but nevertheless, Nick,
that's
I know
fine,
from
sir.
experience that these people, these politicians, they're ruthless when it comes to dealing with people like me and the children that are poor, whose parents are poor and struggle to feed them. They lack compassion, Nick, and that's why I support the 7 MPs that rebelled, because they.
But it's interesting. It would cost £3 billion. This is quite interesting, actually. £3 billion to get to stop the 2-child cap, and the amount of money that they believe is lost through fraud is £2.9 billion. So if, respecting your situation, if you clamp down on fraud, as Alan Milburn is suggesting, you've suddenly lifted all those children out of poverty. Well, we all applaud that, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, so we're there.